11:30 service. You're here. You did it. You made it. I love it. This is our third week of 3 services. And man, every week is just a little bit different. Here's what I'm learning actually is all 3 of the services have a different personality. It's like having 3 kids, right? And what I know about this third service personality is that you're all in. Come on. You lean in. You love to say, man, you love to laugh at the jokes. You are small but mighty. Come on, right? 11:30 service. And I'm so thankful for all of you. And it is a little bit different, but that's okay. It's the same God, same church, same vision. Come on. And God is doing a work and we're having a good time. There's more opportunities for people to have a moment with God. And that's what we're all about, is creating those moments so that lives can be changed. And so we are creating those moments all throughout the day today. And then next Sunday, we're going to have more moments because we're going to have opportunity for people to get baptized. We're going to celebrate with people that are going all in that. In fact, if you haven't been baptized, God's doing a work in your life. We would love to celebrate baptism with you. You can get signed up at the Next Steps table today before you leave so that we can celebrate baptism with you next week. And then, hey, at the end of this series on March the 1st, everybody say March the 1st. March the 1st, we're going to wrap up the It's Okay series with my friend Peter Pignon, who's going to be here. He's a licensed professional counselor. He's going to talk about how it's okay not to be okay. It's going to be a powerful morning. But then that afternoon, we're actually going to have a mental health workshop. And so maybe you would want to get signed up for that. It's for everybody. We're not going to go super in depth. We just want to give you tools to help you to deal with some of these things that we're talking about in this series. And that's going to be a great afternoon as well. So you want to make sure and mark that on your calendar. Now today we're continuing in this series called It's Okay. And we've learned that, hey, there's a lot of things in this world that are not okay, right? And not just in the world, but also in our own worlds. Come on, sometimes we look at our world and we go, man, it's not okay. There's stuff going on in my marriage, or stuff going on in my finances, or my kids, or my health, or whatever it is. But we have learned this powerful thought, and that is that with Jesus, it's okay even when it's not okay, right? Jesus told us in the book of John, he said, hey, I tell you these things so that you can have peace. In this world, there will be trouble. In this world, there will be moments when it's not okay, but you can take heart. Come on, it's okay even when it's not okay. You can have peace in those moments because I've already overcome the world. And that's what we are learning, that even in the times when it's not okay, it's still okay because he's already overcome whatever it is that we are facing. And we've kind of looked at a few areas that sometimes are not okay in our lives. We talk about how it's okay not to be perfect because he is already perfect and he is doing the work of perfecting us. And we talked last week about how it's okay if I'm not where I thought I would be in life. That's okay because he has a way of getting me where he wants me to be. Next week, listen to this. Next week, we're going to talk about it's okay if you can't fix everything. How many fixers do we have? Come on, control freaks in the house today. You're not going to want to miss next Sunday because we're going to talk about how to let go and give God control in our lives. Now, today, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about one that I think will really hit for every single one of us because I think we've all experienced this issue in our lives. We're going to talk about how it's okay to rest. So everybody nudge your neighbor, tell them, come on, it's okay, it's okay. It's okay to rest. In fact, help me out today. Hands all over the place. How many people, sometimes you just feel a little tired and a little worn? Come on, raise your hand. Oh, yeah, some of you too tired to even raise your hand today. I'm telling you what, these jokes, they just write themselves. They do, I'm telling you. But all of us experience that at times, don't we? Those moments where we're weary, when we're worn, when we're tired. There's so much to do, so much going on. You look at your calendar, you're like, man, I got to be here, and I got to be there, and this kid has to be at this practice, and this kid has to be at this recital, and there's projects and homework that they have to do, and there's stuff I got going on in the house because I got, we got to mow the yard, and we got to do the dishes, and we got to pay the bills, and we got to pick up the groceries, and I got stuff going on at work, and this trip that's coming up, and all the different stuff. It can weigh on you sometimes and you can just be worn out and tired. In fact, I figured out why this is. I figured out why I'm tired all the time. I was thinking about it just the other day and I came to this conclusion that the real reason that I'm tired is because I'm overworked. The population of this country is 237 million. 104 million of those are retired. That leaves only 133 million people to do the work. There are 85 million people who are in school, so that narrows it down to only 48 million people to do the work. And of that 48 million, there are 28 million that are employed by the federal government. We know they ain't doing no work. 19 million now just left to do the work. Take that total of the 19 million from the 14,800,000 people who work for the state or the city government, and that leaves only 1.4 million people to do the work. And at any given time, there are 188,000 people in hospitals, leaving only 1,212,000 people to do the work. And now there are 1,211,500 people who are in prisons. That means there's only 500 people to do the work. You guys on a Sunday morning and me, and y'all are sitting there listening to me tell corny jokes. That means I'm doing all the work. No wonder I'm so tired. Come on, how many can relate to that a little bit today? We're all tired. We're all worn out. But maybe we're more than just tired. Maybe it's not the work that we have to do, but maybe it's more about the weight that we have to carry. Maybe there are some of you that are here today that you're not just tired, you're actually weary. It's the tired that no nap and no time off is going to heal. It's a weariness of your soul. In fact, Solomon described this, and I think he painted a pretty good picture of a lot of people in Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and verse 22. He says, "What does a man get for all the toil and anxious striving with which he labors under the sun? All his days, his work is pain and grief. Even at night, his mind does not rest." Some of you can relate to that. You can see yourself in that picture that he paints, because even at night, your mind can't rest. There's so much anxiety. There's so much worry. There's so much toil. You lay your head on the pillow at night and you just can't fall asleep. Maybe you scroll until your eyes just close because you can't get rid of the weight of the things that you're carrying in your world or at your work or in your family. Or maybe you do finally get to sleep, but then you wake up in the middle of the night. You got to go to the bathroom or something. You lay back down. Your mind just starts racing again. Maybe you're trying to be with your family and you're trying to have connection with them, but you can't even focus and be in the moment because your mind is all over the place, and there's this weariness of our souls that we feel. Some of you are nodding your heads, you're leaning in because you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's so much going on and we carry it as such a heavy weight. And here's what I want you to know today. It's a dangerous place to live when we live in this place of weariness. In fact, today I just wanted to show you a couple of the dangers of weariness. If you're taking notes, you can write down this first one, and that is this: that when we get ourselves into a state of weariness, here's what happens. When we're weary, we are vulnerable. You ever notice that? Like in those moments of weariness, like oftentimes we let our guards down and we end up making decisions that end up hurting us. We see this with this story. It's a crazy story in the book of Judges about this guy named Sisera. Now, Sisera was the commander of one of the Canaanite armies who was actually fighting against God's people, fighting against the Israelites. And this guy, he was a big deal. You can read about him that he actually had charge of 900 iron chariots. He had thousands of men. Like, this guy was a great warrior. And Sisera went into battle against God's people, the Israelites, and God allowed his people to defeat Sisera and all of his men. But Sisera, he escaped and he ran to this woman's house named Jael. And I want you to notice what happens in Judges chapter 4 and verse number 17. It says, Sisera, meanwhile, fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. And Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come, my lord, come right in. Don't be afraid." So he entered the tent and she covered him with a blanket. "I'm thirsty," he said. "Please give me some water." So she opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him up. "Stand in the doorway of the tent," he told her. "If someone comes by and asks you, 'Is anyone there?' say no." But Jael, Heber's wife, picked up a tent peg and a hammer and went quietly to him while he was fast asleep, exhausted, and she drove the peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. I told y'all this is a crazy story. Some of the guys are like, yeah. Some of the moms are like, uh-oh, I need to take my kid to kids class. You know what I mean? But what's the point that I'm trying to make here? Here's the point that I'm trying to make here. There's a strong man, a warrior, a leader of all these men, all these chariots. And yet what happened when he got tired? He became vulnerable and he let his guard down. And he began to make some mistakes in judgment. The first mistake is that he went to the house of a lady who was an Israelite, one of his enemies. And that he trusted her to go to sleep. And he lost his life because in a moment of exhaustion, he found himself vulnerable. And here's the truth is that many of us, when we run from place to place with this exhaustion and this weariness of our life and of our soul, what we do is we put ourselves in a vulnerable state. And we end up making decisions that we might not have made if we were not so tired, if we weren't so weary. We find ourselves doing things, having lapses in judgment that can cost us big time in our families and in our lives. And it all begins with this place of weariness. Jesus talked about it in Luke chapter 21 and verse 34. He says, be careful or your hearts will be weighed down with dissipation, drunkenness, and the anxieties of life. And that day will close on you unexpectedly like a trap. What is Jesus saying? Jesus is saying, hey, you got to be careful when you find yourself weary and exhausted, filled with the anxieties of life. If you're not careful, that tiredness can become a trap and you can find yourself making decisions that you never would have made if you weren't in that state of being weary. Weariness, it causes us to be vulnerable. Number 2, write this down. When I am weary, here's what happens. Not only am I vulnerable, but number 2, I'm volatile. My emotions, your emotions become volatile in those states of weariness. When we are tired, guess what happens? We have less control over our moods. Less control over our emotions. In fact, some of you know what I'm talking about because you get worn out, you get tired, you had a hard day at work, you had a hard week, you had a lot of stuff going on, and you come home and your kids are there and they do a little something, and what do? You end up kind of snapping at them. Or you end up being short with your wife, and you didn't mean to be that way. You don't want to treat them that way, but what happened? You're worn out and you're tired and your emotions are on edge and you have less control of your reactions. Someone says something and you overreact. Something happens and you think it's the biggest deal in the world. And later after you get a little rest, you realize, why did I react so big to that? It wasn't that big a deal. Come on, how many know what I'm talking about? And that happens to us. It happened in the Bible. You see men in the Bible who were great men of God, who when they got tired, when they were weary, they ended up overreacting to situations. You think about Moses, a great leader that God had called, a great leader that God used in great ways to lead his people. And yet those people that he was leading were kind of exhausting because they were constantly complaining and constantly wanting him to do stuff and talking to him about all the bad situations and all that. And so one day they were complaining they didn't have any water. And so God told him, he said, I want you to speak to the rock and water will come out. But Moses was so tired and worn and weary because of all the people that he got angry at him. And instead of speaking to the rock, he struck the rock. And water did come out, but Moses lost his inheritance to go into the promised land, all because of a moment of emotion. His emotions were out of control. He got angry. I think about another guy, Elijah. Great man of God that God used in powerful ways. And yet Elijah ran from place to place doing ministry, and he got so worn out and so tired that when the queen made a threat against him, remember, it was the same queen that had threatened him before, but this time he was so tired and so worn out that he found himself sitting under a tree feeling sorry for himself and saying, God, I wish that I were dead. He responded with depression. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Because you get tired. And what happens is your responses are out of whack and you get angry or you get sad or you get anxious or you're afraid or discouraged or depressed. And there's volatility to our emotions when we're in those moments of weariness. When we're weary, we're vulnerable. When we're weary, our emotions are volatile. Number 3, write this one down. When we are weary, oftentimes we lose our vision. We become visionless. We forget our why. When you get tired, we get worn out. You forget your purpose. You forget why you're doing what you're doing. In fact, check out what the Hebrew writer says about it. Hebrews chapter 12. He's talking about running this race, that to follow Jesus and what that looks like. And he describes this great cloud of witnesses that is watching us as we run the race. And then he says, hey, don't let anything hinder you or trip you up or cause you to get tired and quit. And then notice what he says in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 2. He says, but fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross and he scorned the shame and he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that you will not what? Grow weary and lose heart. What is he saying? He said, when you grow weary, here's what happens oftentimes. You lose heart. You forget your vision. You forget your why. You forget your purpose. You get your eyes off of Jesus. You get your eyes off what you are really doing, and you get tired and you get weary and you end up wanting to quit. And some of you go, man, that's me. I'm worn out. I'm tired. My emotions are all over the place. Man, I find myself making decisions that are not good, healthy decisions because I'm exhausted. I'm weary. It feels like I just want to give up and quit. I don't even have any purpose to what I'm doing because my weariness is so great. Pastor, what do I do with this tired exhaustion, weariness that I am feeling? I'm going to tell you, I want to give you an answer. Before I give you an answer, I'm going to tell you that the answer I'm going to give you is going to sound very preachery, very churchy, but it's still the right answer. And the answer is this. There is nothing and no one who can bring rest to your weary soul except Jesus. I know we try to look for all these things to find rest, but look what the psalmist said in Psalm 62 and verse 1. My soul finds rest where? In God alone. My salvation comes from him. There's no person, there's no thing, there's no experience, there's no vacation, there's no amount of success, there's no amount of money, there's no Netflix series that you can binge watch that's going to bring real rest to your soul. There's only one place and one place alone. In God and God alone can I find my rest. There's nothing outside of him that's going to bring rest to the weary soul. Jesus invites us. And look, in fact, look what he says in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. He gives us this invitation. And Jesus said, come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I'll give you what? I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, my burden is light. Jesus says, come to me. Are you weary? Are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you exhausted? What does he do? He invites us. He says, come to me. And what will he do? He'll give you rest, but not just rest for your tired body. Come on, rest for your soul. Rest that can only be found in relationship with him. He says, come to me. And in that moment, that's when you will find rest. In fact, I love the way it says it in the Message paraphrase. He says, are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you will recover your life. I'll show you how to take real rest. Walk with me and work with me and watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn how to live freely and lightly. Jesus says, come to me, and it's in relationship with me that you will find rest. Don't quit, just rest. That's our key thought for today. If you're taking notes, write it down. It's okay to rest as long as you don't quit. It's okay to rest as long as you don't quit. Some of you, when you're tired, you know what you want to do? You want to give up. Man, forget following God. Forget going to church. Forget serving on that team. Man, I don't give up on my marriage. Give up on my relationships. Give up on my job or my dreams or whatever. Jesus says, no, there's a different way. When you're tired, when you're weary, hey, rest, but rest in me. Don't give up. Don't quit. Come to me. And he invites you into that place of rest. In fact, I love how it says it in the Message translation, and I want to use that for just a moment. I want you to see 3 keys that he gives us for how to find this kind of rest in him. If you're taking notes, you can go ahead and write it down. And that is this: number 1, he says, I want you to walk with me. Everybody say that, walk with me. Walk with me. In fact, in the NIV, he says, take my yoke upon you. I love this imagery of the yoke. It's hard for us to understand as Americans because we're not necessarily agricultural in culture and in nature, but the people of that day would understand exactly what he was talking about because they were farmers. And what they would do when they would plow the fields as farmers is they would get oxen and they would put them together and they would take this thing that was called a yoke. It was a harness that they would place over the necks of both of the oxen. And one of the reasons for this yoke or for this harness was to keep the oxen moving moving at the same pace, going together at the same pace. Because what would happen is there would be one oxen that might be a little stronger or a little faster than the other, and it would try to go ahead of the other oxen. And then what would happen? It'd make it get out of alignment, and then the plow wouldn't do right. It would make the work a lot harder. So they devised this thing called a yoke, and they would put the yoke on their necks to keep them walking together at the same pace. And Jesus says, hey, walk with me. Walk at my pace. Take my yoke upon you, and you won't get tired and weary. Most of the time, the reason we get tired and we get so weary is because we're trying to outpace God. We're trying to go faster than him. God, I wanted this to happen quicker than you're making it happen. God, I wanted my marriage to be better. I wanted my business, my money, whatever. And so we try to run out ahead of God. We think, God, you're not doing it fast enough, so I guess I'm going to have to do it on my own. And we outpace him. And we get tired. And we get worn out doing stuff faster than he would have wanted us to do it. His timing is perfect. See, his timing won't wear you out. His timing won't make you weary and tired. And so he says, hey, walk with me. In fact, in the Message, it says it right there in verse 27. He says, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. He says, you don't have to force it. When you're trying to force it, that's what wears you out. But there's an unforced rhythm that you can walk with me. In fact, when you study Jesus, you think about his life. Jesus was busy. He had stuff to do. He was about his Father's business. But he was never rushed and never hurried. And he says, hey, I don't want you to rush. You don't have to be in a hurry. My timing's perfect. If you'll walk with me at my pace, you won't get worn out and tired. He says, walk with me. That's about pace. Number two, he doesn't just say, walk with me. Look what he says. He says, work with me. And this is about partnership. So everybody say partnership. He said, I want to connect together with you. See, I don't want you to just go at the same pace as me. I want you to have more power. In fact, that's the other side of the illustration of the yoke, is that they would harness them together, not just so that they would go at the same pace. They would harness them together because they knew that two oxen had a whole lot more power than just one oxen. And so they would put them together so that they would be stronger. And this is what Jesus invites us to do. He says, hey, come to me and walk at my pace, but not just that, like get connected to me and use my strength. See, some of us, the reason we're worn out is because we're trying to carry in our own strength stuff that God never intended for us to carry. But Jesus says, hey, if you'll come to me, guess what? I won't put anything heavy or anything ill-fitting on you. Come on, my grace is sufficient for you. So if you'll get connected to me, there will be a greater power. You don't have to carry it. I'll carry it for you if you'll take my yoke upon you. In fact, this is what the prophet Isaiah, I believe, was talking about in Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 30. Look what he says. He says, even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord, everybody say, hope in the Lord. Those who hope in the Lord, what will they do? They will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow what? Will not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. What is he saying? He's saying, hey, if you'll come to me, God says, then what I will do is I'll give you my strength. If you'll wait on me, if you'll hope in me, come on, if you'll get connected together with me and walk with me, then guess what? We'll partner together and you won't have to carry the stuff all on your own. There's a supernatural strength that I can give to you if you'll just wait on me, if you'll trust in me, if you'll hope in me. Come on, I got strength that I will give you in every situation of your life. He says, hey, walk with me. Go at my pace. Work with me. Let me use my power in your life. Let me give you all that you need. You don't have to carry it on your own. And then thirdly, look what he says. He says, what does he say? I almost forgot. He says, watch me. You'd think I'd remember. This is my third time doing this. He says, watch me. You know what this represents? Represents practice. He says, here's some example of how you can live and not get worn out. He says it in Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, I'll give you rest. Take my yoke on you and what? And learn from me. Jesus says, watch and learn. Do what I do. It's very practical. He sets the model, the example of how to live a life without getting worn out, exhausted, without getting tired and weary. He shows us how to rest. In fact, you just look at Jesus' life, you can see a few ways that he shows us how to rest. First of all, he teaches us about spiritual rest. In fact, I like this verse in Mark 1 and verse 35. It says, very early in the morning, While it was still dark, he departed and he went to a desolate place where he what? He prayed. Notice this, for Jesus, rest wasn't as much about sleep as it was about connection with the Father. He got up early, but he had a purpose for it, to get into the presence of God, to practice a spiritual rest. And this was a daily routine. It was a regular thing that he would connect to the Father. Maybe if Jesus did that, maybe we need to do that too. Maybe if we're tired and we're weary, maybe what we need to do is spend more time in God's presence. Spend more time with Jesus, more time with the Father, and practice what it means to have spiritual rest. But Jesus didn't just practice spiritual rest. He also practiced physical rest. Guess what, everybody? Jesus took naps. That's pretty cool. There's this story in the Bible where Jesus and the disciples are in a boat. The storm comes up in the boat. The disciples are freaked out. We're going to die in this storm. Where's Jesus? They go to look for Jesus. Where's he at? The Bible says he was laying on a cushion taking a nap. Come on. If Jesus took naps, guess what? Maybe we ought to take some too. Maybe it won't fix all your weariness, but it probably wouldn't hurt either, you know? In fact, some of y'all, the most spiritual thing you can do today is after service, not right now during the service, but after service, go to lunch, go home, take a nap. I'm not just talking about in your recliner. I'm talking about get in the bed, like not on top of the covers, like pull the covers back, get in the bed, pull the covers up, and take a nap, you guys. Some of y'all are going to be going home. Your wife's going to be like telling you, I need you to do this. No, pastor said I got to take a nap today. He practiced spiritual rest. He practiced physical rest. Notice the other one, this last one. He practiced relational rest. Jesus knew when to come away. Look at this. I like this. I can relate to it. Mark chapter 7, verse 24. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. I don't know. I think that's funny. He was tired, so he went to a place called Tyre. Some of y'all don't think that's funny, but I think it's funny. It's preacher humor, I'm telling you. And he entered a house, and he did not want anyone to know it. Do I have any introverts in the place today? Some of y'all won't raise your hand because you're introverted, you know, but I'm that way. Like I'm more of an introvert. People don't usually recognize that because they see me up here getting all excited. But like I'm a relational introvert. I love being around y'all. Love y'all. Love being here on Sundays and shaking everybody's hands and all that kind of stuff. But on Sunday after church, man, I'm like, don't nobody come around me. You know what I mean? Like I got to come away. And Jesus understood that. Like he had to come away. Sometimes we just got to get away from people and have some time to just rest. And Jesus understood that. But he also understood that there's also not just time to come away. Sometimes there's time to come together. And you see this over and over in the scripture that Jesus would go to Mary and Martha and Lazarus' house and they would just hang out and they would just spend time together, and he understood that. And sometimes that's the kind of rest that we need. In fact, that's what church is all about. That's why we come to church. So we come together to get filled up. And the only way we can get filled up sometimes is through those connections with other followers of Jesus and those relationships. That's why we do life groups, which actually life groups started just this last week. If you're not in a group, you ought to get into a group. And this is a way that you find that rest for your soul. You get people in your life that can fill those areas of your life that can only be filled by community and relationships with others. Here's the bottom line today. Weariness is dangerous. And if you continue to live your life weary and tired and exhausted and worn, you're going to put yourself in vulnerable situations, and you're going to end up hurting people with words you say and things that you end up doing in the weariness. And if you're not careful, you get weary and you'll lose heart. You'll lose your vision. You'll lose your purpose and your reason why. But if you will come to Jesus, Jesus says, I can give you rest. You're not going to get rest by all the things that we think is going to get us rest. No. We get rest by coming to him. Walking at his pace, partnering together, receiving his strength, doing what he did, putting into practice the rhythms, the unforced rhythms of his grace. We learn to walk that way. We can find rest for our souls. It's okay to rest. Just don't quit. Back in Galatians 6:9, one of my favorite verses. Don't grow weary in doing good. Or at the proper time, you'll reap a harvest if you just don't give up. Some of you are weary, you're tired, you're worn out. Don't quit, just rest. Come to him.
Thank you for joining us online today. Make sure and hit subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for more notifications. We can't wait to engage with you this week.